Hi, this is Kevin Deal. Today we're going to talk about PrimaLuna, tube rolling, having fun, and also not wasting money. I just got off the phone with a guy who is buying a new PrimaLuna, and he's so excited. He goes, Kevin, because I get this about 50 times a day, he goes, Kevin, what tube should I put in it? And I said, nothing. You know, I don't know how this started, where people thought that PrimaLuna is not using the best sounding tubes. Well, I know how it started. It's because you can change tubes. This is what you need to know. There's another integrated amp on the market that has 100 watts per channel that runs KT120s. And that thing runs, I think it's like 588 volts to the plates, right? I mean, the tubes are just blazing. And so you're running KT120s at near the limit of their dissipation. In a PrimaLuna, if you put KT120s into a PrimaLuna, it's running 417 volts to the plates. It's only dissipating 21 watts. And so you can't take other tubes and put them into other brands of amps. You can't put an EL34 into many products on the market because you just can't beat them up that much. But see, manufacturers want to sell it. For people buying their first tube amp, they go, I talk to them all, I go, well, it's 36 watts. Oh, it's not enough power. I go, what do you mean it's not enough power? Oh, I need 100 watts. I go, why do you need 100 watts? I don't know, I need 100 watts because people have been sold stuff for years. The power has something to do with sound quality or bass slam. It has nothing to do with those things at all in any way, shape, or form, period. You're not going to be using more than 3 or 4 or 5 watts. So if you've got 100 watts or 1,000 watts, you're never going to use that power. So the only thing that counts is bandwidth. And in a tube power amplifier, that is going to be dictated by the output transformers. Pause this for a second. I'm going to grab something.
A few moments later.
This is a PrimaLuna dialogue class output transformer. That's what I'm talking about. This is what's going to dictate bass response. It's not going to be the tube type. It's not going to be the amount of power. It's bandwidth. And reviewers all the time talk about the amazing bass that PrimaLunas have using EL34s and with 36 watts per channel. So it's going to be dictated by this, and this is where manufacturers cheap out. They're expensive parts, and they buy them off the shelf, and they want to save money. And I'm telling you, especially the larger manufacturers of tube amps, I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about, right? They got this stuff figured out to the penny. And if they can save 10 cents, I'm telling you they're going to do it. These output transformers were wound in-house. They are designed in-house. And I dare say that they are amongst the best in the world. So what I'm saying is this. Don't worry about the power. Going from an EL34 to a KT120 should never be done because of additional power. It's not going to matter to you. Do it because maybe you just want to try it. KT120s are a little bit more technical sounding. If every manufacturer on the planet was honest, if they were honest, which I doubt, they would tell you they would love to run EL34s because they're so eminently musical. But when you're selling it, when you're trying to sell your stuff, the easy way to do it is with those high power numbers because people take comfort in that. But it's really unfortunate because they end up buying the wrong stuff. EL34s are magic. I run KT150s at home. Why do I do that? Probably because I own this place, and I think they look kind of cool. But I got to tell you, I don't know that they sound a ton better. If you put KT120s into a PrimaLuna or KT150s into a PrimaLuna, I will say this. They last like almost forever. I measured mine, and after 2.5 years of very heavy use, I looked at the measurements compared to new. They're almost at like 90% because we're only running like 417 volts to the plates. That's cool. So if you're a real heavy user and you're using your amps like 8 hours a day, then it could be a good idea for you. Or if you like the way KT150s look, it could be a good idea for you. I mean, KT150s are a great tube. Have fun with this. One more thing. On the website, that's where we put the latest information. You know, it's really hard for me to give you direct advice on this, and people reach out to me all the time, and there's just only one of me, and I hope you understand that. I can't tell you what you're going to like best. It depends on your system. If your system's a little dark, then maybe you want to get some tubes that are a little brighter. If your system's a little bright, get some tubes that are a little darker. That's going to be your decision. And we have descriptions. The clearinghouse for information is on the PrimaLuna website, and we want you to refer to that because it's something that you really have to decide. Now let's talk about the front end tubes in the integrated amps and on the power amps. This is what you need to know. The tubes in the front center, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's going to be the most important tube. So I would suggest to you, if you're going to buy an expensive tube, the stock 12AU7s, they're just gorgeous. Now, if you go with a Russian tube, let's say like the Gold Lion reissue or the Mullard reissue, those are made in Russia. Now, I will say this. Those tubes do last longer. They last forever. So that might be a good way to go. If you're going to go with expensive new old stock, don't do all the tubes. Do the ones in the front center to see if you've made a good move before you invest over here, because the tubes flanking the two center tubes, those are driver tubes. They drive the grids of the power tubes and they have less effect. Now here's another helpful tip. If you have an integrated amp and you get some noise out of the left channel, driver tubes are less picky than preamp tubes. So all you have to do is just reverse these two and the sound could very well go away. That can save you some bucks and some trouble. So again, driver tubes, less of an effect. Do that later if you want to, but the tubes in the center, that's where the rubber meets the road. Now let's talk about the preamps. The tubes in the front center, that's the most important ones. Now the ones that are flanking it, they have different jobs, and we're going to have individual models up on the PrimaLuna website with little circles about what's most important and what isn't. The beautiful thing about PrimaLuna preamps is this. They only have 10 dB or 12 dB of gain. That is a beautiful thing. There's preamplifiers out there on the market that have 27 dB of gain, 30 dB of gain. And the problem with those preamps is they chew up tubes. There's no reason to have that much gain. It means that the tube is under a microscope. So noise problems happen and microphony problems happen. And you just don't hear about PrimaLuna owners having that as an issue. So the tubes in the front center, that's the first place to start. The tubes flanking it, we're going to have a little circle about on the website to tell you what's important and what isn't. 5AR4s. The stock 5AR4s, I'm just telling you, they are badass. And they're the closest thing that you're going to get to a Mullard without being a Mullard. There are Mullard reissues and Gold Lion reissues, and I'm just going to be honest with you, the Russian 5AR4 is not as dependable as this one. So I would really suggest that you stay with the stock 5AR4s. There are some crazy expensive, Mullard, real Mullards that were made in England. You could use those. That's great. There's Philips 5R4 GYS. Those are great. But I want to, say use caution with that and go to what the website says. That's where you're going to get the best information. So look, I'm not trying to be a buzzkill about people having fun, because that's part of the cool thing about PrimaLuna is the flexibility. That you don't have to worry about matched tubes. That adaptive auto bias is going to extend the usable life of tubes and just make everything so easy for you. It's the freedom. But there's a difference between the freedom and having fun and people thinking that it's a requirement. And I just, if I was selling it the way all these other guys do, I'd say, oh yeah, spend money on tubes. But that's not the way I'm wired, and that's not the way that PrimaLuna is wired. We want you to have fun, but I don't want you getting too nervous about this stuff. Go to the website. If you have any questions, there's a Facebook page of PrimaLuna owners. You can always go there. Of course, there's probably crazy people there too. But look, we're on your side, and I think you know that. Thanks for shopping. I want to add one more thing. I should have mentioned this to you. If you're going to be buying tubes, listen to what I'm going to tell you. Get tubes from Upscale Audio. Nobody in this business gives a shit about you. Remember this, that the tubes that are being made today are for the most part made in Russia. And Russians are not going to be throwing away anything. The people that make those tubes are going to get money out of each and every one of them that lights up. Every tube is different. Every tube is different. So when I see people go, oh yeah, I got a great deal on them on eBay, I go, are you out of your mind? The tubes are the beginning and the end of the amplifier. It is the most important thing. And you can buy a brand new Tungsol KT150 and it could only have 10% of its life left. We spend more money to buy our raw inventory at Upscale Audio than anybody does. I can promise you that. But we do it so I can control and get you the very, very best testing ones, and those are going to last longer. The tubes are critically important, and you need to know that there are people, there are dealers that as a course of their business, they buy the sweepings that are on the floor and they just make a business out of that. And if that's what they want to do, that's fine, but I don't want you to go buy it there. Tubes are not a profit center for Upscale Audio. It's not. It's a lot of work, but the reason that I do it is because nobody else gives a shit about you, but we do, and I want you to be happy. Thanks.